Hey, so I decided, because we're doing embroidery basics virtually, that it would be easier for me to do the hoop demo as a video that I'll play during the embroidery basics Zoom presentation. Hopefully too, this will become a video for people who can't always come or want to refer back to it, that you can always go back and watch it again. So this first video I'm doing is a hooping video. So I'm going to go through the basics of the embroidery hoops, how you read them, how they work, and then we're going to talk a little bit about basic hooping. Then I'll do a second video on hard to hoop items like onesies and fuzzy towels and bags and things like that, so that you have a little bit of a reference point for when you're working on more difficult things. So the first thing I want to do is kind of go through the hoops. So the basic Bernina hoops, there's three basic ones that come with most of the machines. You have your small, you have your medium, and we call this one the large oval. So anytime you see, if you come to a class, we're talking about the large oval, we're talking about this one. There are lots of other bigger hoops. There are three additional larger hoops, but these are the ones that generally come with the machine. Okay? Baby Lock has even more different sizes, but their hoops look like this. And let me just pop this out so you can actually see the hoop, and your screw is right there. And then if you have a multi-needle, this is your hoop, and if I pop this out, you have two pieces that look like this. Okay? So those are for the machines we sell, the basic hoops. Now, when we look at a Bernina hoop, let me pull one out. And Michelle, you may want to zoom in on this. When you look at the hoop, the inner hoop and the outer hoop have two little arrows. Anytime you're hooping, you want to make sure those arrows are aligned, because if you use a hoop template, those arrows, if they're not aligned, the template won't line up properly. Okay? The other thing is that if you put the arrows, when you put this down to hoop, at your body, you will know this is exactly how it goes on the sewing machine, so you will know where is up and down and the two sides, which also makes it easier to determine. If you've got a lot of bulk, you don't want the bulk on this side of the hoop, you want it out here where it's going to be off the edge of the machine. So that's the Bernina hoop. On the Baby Lock hoop, again, you have arrows. This one wasn't lined up. And they are right here. They're a little harder to see, okay? If you have an Altair, your hoops have these marks because that's what we use to send the designs down for them to align. But you're going to want to make sure those are lined up when they go on the machine also. And in your hoop, if you put the arrows at the top and the clamp at the bottom, this is how it goes on the machine. So again, you have a reference point of where is up and down and the two sides, inside the machine, outside the machine. Now, the multi hoops, they really don't care which way you put them together, okay? But they go in a little differently. On these hoops, you're going to see we put the big ring down and then we put the little ring inside. On a multi-hoop, you put the little ring down and the big ring goes inside. Now, having just taken home a multi-needle, which I love, what I found that sometimes if you're doing applique where you're putting this on and off a lot, it's important that it can go on the machine in either direction, that you kind of have a reference point. So I mark one side of my hoop and I wrote the word front on it, so that if I am going to be doing applique or anything that's going to require me to take the hoop on and off, I always know which one should be at the front of the machine. But this one, other than that, there are no arrows. There's no specific way it has to go into here. You're just going to line it up and push it down and connect them. Okay? So that's the basics of the different hoops that we work with. All right? Now, to prep your fabric, I'm going to show you this. So whenever we hoop, unless you're going to do something that just generically you're going to build in the hoop, it doesn't matter where. And an example of that is if you were going to do like these lace snowflakes, you could just hoop your piece of fabric in there and place them wherever and it wouldn't matter. But if you want to monogram a towel, or you want to put something fun in a towel, especially as we come into the holidays, or any time really, you're gonna want to identify where you want that design placed. And normally what we want to do is we would place a cross on there, and the center of the cross is where you want the center of the design. So if you're figuring this out and you want this to be centered exactly in here, then I would measure from here to here, come up with half of that, and that's where I would put my line and do the same thing this way. What's important about these marks is, one, you need to be able to remove them. So you always want to test your marking pencil, whatever kind you're using, so that when you go to erase this, you know it's gone. And two, once you've drawn one line, you need to be sure that the second line is perpendicular. So when you lay the ruler down, make sure you have a straight line on your ruler on this line before you draw this line, so that they are exactly perpendicular to each other. Because it'll be impossible to get a good straight hooping if they're crooked, because you won't be able to get both lines lined up. And we use this cross in all applications. Whether we're using the baby lock, we're using the snowman sticker, we're using the Altair, the new hoop where you can take the picture of the hoop, you always need to have a reference point. If you use a machine that uses the snowman sticker, you can put the sticker right here, but I like to extend the lines a little bit for a visual, so you always want to identify that center. Okay? Now, the best and basic hooping that you can do is if you can put this and your stabilizer all in the same hoop. So the way we do that is I lay this down and I take my stabilizer, which I'm going to just use a tearaway here, and I am going to lightly spray it with 505. Now, as I told you in the main video, every class you take is going to contradict another class you have. But what I find is when I make these two things one, if I smooth that out, now I don't have to worry when I'm hooping that one is going to go in one direction and one's going to go in another. They're all nice and smooth, and they're all one piece. Okay? So I've got that ready. I'm going to take my hoop, and this is another thing that there's a lot of differing opinions out there. I'm going to loosen my screw a lot. I'm going to make sure this is super loose. I believe that when you go to put your inner hoop in here, the looser it is and the easier you can put your hoop in, the less you're going to stretch and burn your fabric. And we talked about hoop burn in the main class. So I want this as loose as I can get it without having that little nut come off and roll away. I'm going to put this on my favorite inexpensive hooping aid. This is shelf liner paper. You can get it in any dollar store, H-E-B, or Walmart. I'm going to put that down. I'm going to place this so that, again, the arrow is at my body if I'm working on a Bernina hoop. I am going to then take this and I'm going to slide it over here, and I'm going to get it approximately centered, and I'm going to walk my fingers around so that, what am I checking for? I'm checking that visually it's sort of looking straight and that I've got stabilizer all the way around. Okay? And I'm going to take this and find my arrow, put it at the bottom, and I should be able to push this in just that easy. I didn't stress, I didn't force it, I didn't do anything. It's not hurting the fabric at all. And what I would do now, except I didn't bring my template in, is I would put my template down and I would check that that's straight. So I'm going to have Michelle stop the video and we'll splice it together. So almost all of the hoops that you have will come with a template. And what we use the template for, not to take space in our drawer, we use it to actually verify that we have hooped straight. So this is looking, if you look at this, pretty straight to me, right? But if I put my hoop in, and the Bernina always goes down towards my body at the bottom, and it's gonna be, she's gonna have to really zoom in here. But if you notice, it's pretty straight. I'm pretty good at eyeballing it, but if you notice this line, it starts here and it goes up at an angle, and this one travels at an angle a little bit also. By leaving this loose, I can just pop this up, make a slight adjustment, and now look, that's an equal distance. It doesn't have to be on a line. It just has to be parallel and equal distance, and this one is dead on. Now, some of you may be saying, but it's not in the center. It has to be in the center. It does not have to be in the center. You can't put that in the center and have this in the hoop. We can move our design. Our designs are not permanent in place. We can move our design to where our cross is. Okay, so that makes it easy to, so you can hoop wherever you need to as long as it's straight. Now I'm going to slide this to the edge of the table, and I'm going to hold, this is important, I'm going to hold my fingers on the inner hoop, and so they can see, I'm going to hold this down, and I am going to tighten while I tighten it. Because if you've got something really bulky in this hoop, and you start to tighten and you're not holding the inner hoop, that inner hoop's just going to pop right out, and you're going to have to start over again. Now, once I have this hooped and I've got it straight, a couple things you want to do. You want to pick this up and you want to push the inner hoop just slightly past the outer hoop. And the reason we do that is if you don't do that, this is nice and soft now, and that's going to run on top of our beautiful stainless steel neck on a Bernina. If you don't do that and the plastic is below the soft part, it will etch or scratch a design in your beautiful stainless steel machine. So you definitely want to be push that through. Okay, once I have the inner hoop into the outer hoop and it's tightened, and I look at it, what you want to do is it should feel like a tambourine, and there shouldn't be any excess fabric, meaning if I'm running my hand here, I don't have fabric building up in front of my hand. I don't have bubbles. It should be all nice and smooth and even. And if you can get to this point, this is what I would consider the ideal hooping, when you can hoop both your item and your stabilizer, and it's all nice and smooth, and you've got a nice clear line where you want to embroider. You are good to go, okay? Wouldn't it be wonderful if the world always gave us this opportunity? But that's not what happens. We have all kinds of things that we have to deal with when we have hard to hoop items. We also have things that cause us issues, which we're going to talk about in the next video, but I'll give you a little preview, is what happens when I have minky and it's fuzzy. How am I going to embroider that? This is a waffle weave towel. How am I going to embroider that? What about towels with loops? How am I going to embroider that? And one of my biggest nemesis, what if I want to do a little label like this? How do I get this in the hoop? And oh my heavens, this is always one of our nightmares to hoop, little baby onesies. So how do I hoop that? And then bags, what about bags? If I have a bag that's got a bottom, how do I get this in my hoop? So the next video we're gonna do is we're gonna go through and I'm gonna show you how I hoop all of these things and what I do to set up for all of the different textures. And then after that, you'll be ready to tackle your first project.